Hello everyone, with the release of Gogmazios and now Artian Dahaad, we can finally start to make all of our endgame builds. So in this video, I have compiled 3 of the best Greatsword builds that you can make entitled Update 4. We're going to have everyone's favorite main set, which is just going to be all about doing as much damage as possible. Another set which is going to be a fun to play offset focused build that utilizes Powerhouse for a very nice attack increase. And lastly, we're going to have another set which is a little bit more focused on power clashes and has the potential to outperform the main set since it makes use of binding counter. But in addition to all of that, I have also included a perfect charm and craftable charm version of all of these builds, so you can still make all of these builds regardless of your charm luck. However, before we get into the builds, I want to quickly mention that I've actually made multiple builds for every single one of the 14 weapon types this time around, and if you would like to get access to those builds and upcoming builds before I make videos on them, you can get access to absolutely everything in the build section of my Discord server. Links everywhere. So the first thing you'll need to know about the builds is actually the weapon, and for all of the builds I'm going to be covering here today, I will be using a Gogma Artian Greatsword, but with different active skills depending on the build. Generally, Lord's Soul and Gormagala's Tyranny are going to be the best active skills in almost every situation, but there are still exceptions where you would want to use something else. As for the focus type, I'm going to recommend you go with the attack focus for that extra bit of raw damage. This is exactly what your ideal reinforcement bonuses will look like, and the element type is really up to you. Right then, getting into the first build, we have our main set, and to make this one you're going to need a Gogma Artian Greatsword with both Lord's Soul and Gormagala's Tyranny as the active skills. You will also need the Dahaad Gamma, Nuja Chest Gamma, Bale Arms, Gormagala Waist Alpha, Bale Legs, and a good charm. It is worth noting that you don't actually need this very specific charm that I'm using here. Any attack charm that has one other desired skill on it will work just fine. Also, these 2 points of constitution don't really matter at all, they're just nice to have. But in addition to all of that, you will also need all of these decorations right here as well. So as I said before, this is basically your main set. It generally does the most damage while unfortunately relying on that little bit of latent power to get there. I'm personally getting a bit tired of seeing latent power in the meta, but what can you really do? Let's take a look at the actual math behind this set. We have 257 base raw, which gets increased by 5% for guts, and an additional 4% for attack boost, giving us 280. Once we add our flat damage skills on top of that, we get 319, which after we account for our white sharpness, that becomes 421. Or with our affinity and critical boost, a total of 567 EFR. Moving on to the craftable charm version of that same set, we are again going to require a Gogma Artian Greatsword with both Lord's Soul and Gormagala's Tyranny as the active skills. For the armor, it's going to be the Bale Head, Nuja Chest Gamma, Bale Arms, Gormagala Waist Alpha, Dahaad Legs Gamma, and the Power Charm 3, as well as all of these decorations. This build of course loses a tiny bit of damage over the original as a result of us no longer having attack boost, but we do manage to gain an additional point of latent power to help make up for that just a tiny bit. Other than that, this set is basically the exact same as the original. The math on this one is going to be 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. Once we add our flat damage skills on top of that, we get 299. White sharpness then turns that into 395, so once we account for our affinity and critical boost, we get a total of 552 EFR. Next up, we have the offset build, which is honestly a lot of fun and built around Dashaguma's Might, or the Powerhouse skill. To make this one, you'll need a Gogma Artian Greatsword with both Lord's Soul and Dashaguma's Might as the active skills. As for the armor, it's going to be the Dahaad Gamma, Nuja Chest Gamma, Bale Arms, Dashaguma Waist Beta Transcended, Bale Legs, and I'm using this charm. As I said before, you don't actually need this very specific charm. Any attack charm with any additional desired skill on it will work just fine. But you will also need all of these decorations as well. So this is going to be your offset build. It's very similar to the main set, except we're not using any Frenzy Virus shenanigans to increase our damage. Instead, we're basically just relying on doing a couple offsets every now and then to keep Powerhouse active for its attack buff. Which is honestly extremely easy, because once you activate the skill, it lasts for like 3 minutes. The uptime on that thing is actually pretty insane. Moving on to the math, we again have 257 base raw, which is getting increased by 5% for guts, and an additional 4% for attack boost, giving us 280. With our flat damage skills added on top of that, we then get up to 329. Weight Sharpness then turns that into 435, so with our Affinity and Critical Boost, we're looking at a total of 563 EFR. As for the Craftable Charm version of the build, we're again going to need our Gogma Artian Greatsword to have Lord Soul and Dashaguma's Might as the active skills for this to work. For the armor, we're going to need the Dahaad Gogma, Bale Chest, Arms Gogma, Dashaguma Waist Beta Transcend, Bale Legs, and the Encounter Charm 3, plus all of these decorations right here. This build is basically the same as the original. We again lose our attack boost as per usual, but we do manage to pick up Thunderous Roar, which is going to increase our latent power uptime and therefore our affinity overall to help us close the gap on that damage loss. The math here is 257 base raw, increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. Flat damage skills then bring it up to 309. With white sharpness that becomes 409. So with our affinity and critical boost, we're looking at a total of 548 EFR. Moving on to the binding counter set, this is going to be a bit of a power clash focused build, because power clashes are pretty much the only way to activate binding counter without getting destroyed by the monster. To make this one, you're going to need a Gogma Artian Greatsword with the Lord Soul and Gormagala's Tyranny yet again. The armor is going to be the Bale Head, Dahaad Chest Gogma, Bale Arms, Gormagala Waist Beta, Dahaad Legs Gogma, and I'm using this charm. Unfortunately, this is pretty much the only charm that can make this exact build, so if you don't have it, you're going to be a skill point short. These will be all of your decorations for this set. Now, this is honestly my personal favorite from all of the Greatsword sets I will be covering in this video. That's because its damage output is basically identical to the main set, except it relies significantly less on latent power, and has the ability to either outperform or underperform the main set, depending on your binding counter uptime. So if it takes you like 5 minutes or less to hunt the monster, and you have no issues getting a power clash in early, I would highly recommend using this set over the main one. Getting into the math on this one, we have 257 base raw, which gets increased by 5% for guts, and an additional 4% for attack boost, giving us 280. With our flat damage skills added on top of that, we get 328. White sharpness then turns it into 433. So once we account for our affinity and critical boost, we're looking at a total of 568 EFR. As for the craftable charm version of the build, it's also going to require that same Gogma Artian Greatsword, with both Lord Soul and Gormagala's Tyranny as the active skills. The armor is Bale Head, Dahaad Chest Gogma, Bale Arms, Gormagala Waist Alpha, Dahaad Legs Gogma, and the Exploiter Charm 2, along with all of these decorations as well. Like all of the other craftable charm versions of these builds, this one also loses out on some damage due to the loss of attack boost. But to help make up for that, this set does manage to gain an additional point of agitator over the original, and it honestly does a pretty decent job at making up for some of that damage loss, as you'll see with the math. Speaking of math, this set has 257 base raw, which gets increased by 5% for guts, giving us 269. With our flat damage skills, that becomes 311. White sharpness then turns that into 410, so with our affinity and critical boost, we're looking at a total of 552 EFR. So those are all of the best Greatsword builds I recommend you be using for Title Update 4. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next video.